He thought she was just another gold digger. Pretty smile, struggling job. He was a billionaire, used to people pretending. So when she didn't chase his money, he got suspicious. He judged her, labeled her. But one night, she left her handbag behind. And when he drove to return it, he didn't find gold. He found a rundown home, 2 sick twins asleep in one room, and a mother who was doing everything to keep them alive. That moment, it didn't just change how he saw her. It changed who he was. Welcome to Hearts and Billions, where the rich meet the broken, and one moment changes everything. Love, loss, redemption, all in one story. Please subscribe to feel every heartbeat. Please kindly take me to 1,000 subscribers. The upscale steakhouse buzzed with soft music and low laughter. Crystal glasses clinked. Suits and silk dresses floated from table to table. At the corner booth, Ethan Cross, billionaire tech mogul and guarded heart, sat sipping scotch, half listening to the investors around him, until she walked by. Maya, a waitress, late 20s, worn apron, tired eyes, but a smile that somehow reached through the noise. She moved from table to table with grace, balancing plates and pleasantries. Ethan noticed the way she paused to refill water before being asked, how she complimented an old man's tie like it actually mattered. She wasn't flirting. She was surviving, but Ethan had been burned too many times by women who said all the right things, who saw his face, his name, his bank account, and suddenly saw a future. So when Maya smiled at him for the first time, he didn't see kindness. He saw strategy. Pretty, struggling, probably Googled. Me before she even brought the breadsticks. His jaw tightened as he watched her laugh with an elderly couple, his mind already filling in her story. She'll flirt. I'll offer a date. She'll act surprised when the car picks her up, then pretend not to notice the penthouse. And somewhere between the wine and the lies, she'll try to own me like everyone else has. So when she returned to his table, Ethan gave her a cool look. She placed the check in front of him with both hands. Let me know if you need anything else, Mr. Cross. He looked her in the eye and smiled back. A sharp, empty kind of smile. Let's see how long you keep this act up, he thought. What he didn't know was that Maya wasn't playing a part. She was holding her world together with 2 shifts, a broken-down car, and hope. And that night would be the beginning of a story. Neither of them could ever forget. Ethan Cross didn't believe in trust anymore. Not in business, not in people, and definitely not in love. He had dated actresses, influencers, charity darlings, all of them drawn to his last name. His net worth, his headlines, and every time the story ended the same way. Someone used him. Someone lied, and Ethan walked away colder than before. So when Maya smiled shyly and said, "I'm not sure I belong in your world," he didn't hear honesty. He heard strategy. To him, this was a pattern, a script. First, play modest, he thought, then act surprised by the luxury, then ask for just a little help, and never stop asking. That's why, even after he officially asked her out, he kept one eye open. He picked her up in a normal car, not his Rolls. Took her to quiet cafes, not private rooftop lounges. Never mentioned the word billionaire. And Maya, she didn't ask questions. She seemed happy with small things, a walk in the park, a cheap diner booth, sharing a slice of pie, which made Ethan even more suspicious. She's playing the long game, he told himself, waiting for me to let my guard down. What he didn't see was that Maya wasn't playing any game. She was happy with a booth and a slice of pie, because it was one of the few nights she wasn't clocked in, wearing a stained apron and aching feet. She liked Ethan, not because of how much he had, but because for a moment she didn't have to carry everything alone. But Ethan couldn't see that. He didn't trust it. He noticed when her smile faded for a second after checking her phone. He assumed it was about money. He saw her glance toward the register at the end of their date. He assumed she was sizing up the bill. He noticed she always turned down dessert and thought she was calculating, not sacrificing. They all want something, he muttered once under his breath as she walked away. But that night was coming, the one night that would shatter every assumption, and it wouldn't be her words that changed his mind. It would be what he saw when she wasn't looking. It was supposed to be a normal night. Ethan had taken Maya out to a small local Italian place, her choice. Nothing fancy, Just red checkered tablecloths, soft jazz, and candlelight. She laughed more that night than he'd ever seen. She barely touched her food, but her eyes looked tired, even when she smiled. He didn't ask, and she didn't offer. After dinner, she got a text. Something shifted. Her face tensed. She apologized, hugged him quickly, and rushed outside. It was the first time she left in a hurry. Only after she was gone did Ethan notice. Her handbag was still sitting under the table. He picked it up, intending to return it the next day. But as he held it in his hands, he hesitated. It was light, worn. The leather handle was fraying at the edges. Out of habit, he checked inside to find her contact info. No wallet, no cash, just a few crumpled receipts. A child's drawing folded carefully, between a daycare flyer and an overdue power bill. The drawing was shaky, two stick-figure kids holding hands, with Mommy written in shaky letters above them. One of the kids had tubes drawn on their face in blue crayon. Beneath it, an orange prescription bottle rolled out. Ethan froze. He picked it up and read the label. A child's name. The dosage. The words, for chronic respiratory failure. His throat tightened. This wasn't a woman chasing comfort. This was a mother chasing survival. The quiet strength, the constant phone checking, the way she turned down dessert every time. It wasn't about impressing him. It was about stretching every dollar. Ethan sat back in his car, holding her bag in his lap, completely still. All this time, he'd been studying her like a problem to solve. And now, for the first time, he felt like the problem wasn't her. It was him. Ethan didn't sleep that night. He sat in his penthouse, lights off, bag still in his hands. The child's drawing lay on the table beside the untouched glass of whiskey. The city glowed below him, but he felt completely alone, surrounded by things that didn't matter anymore. By morning, the decision was made. He didn't text, didn't send a driver. He got in his own car and drove, alone, using the address from the power bill. It wasn't the kind of neighborhood Ethan Cross belonged in. The sidewalks were cracked. The buildings were faded. A rusted tricycle lay tipped over near the curb. He checked the address twice. This was it. He parked and stepped out, carrying her bag. The building was old. The buzzer didn't work. A neighbor propped the door open with a mop bucket. He climbed 2 narrow flights of stairs, each one creaking under his weight. And then he knocked. No security, no camera crew, just him. The door opened halfway. Maya stood there, eyes wide, hair tied back, wearing a stretched-out T-shirt and old sweats. Not the woman he met in a diner. No makeup, no mask. Just Mom. Her eyes went straight to the bag in his hand. Oh my God, I figured you'd need it, Ethan said softly. She looked flustered, embarrassed. I'm so sorry. I left in such a rush. Behind her, 2 little voices called out. Mommy! Who's that? Ethan looked over her shoulder and froze. 2 small children, twins, peeked from a mattress on the floor. One was wearing a nasal cannula attached to a portable oxygen tank. The other held a plastic toy with cracked wheels. They looked tired. They looked fragile. And they looked happy to see him. Do you want to come in? Maya asked gently, hesitating. He didn't answer with words. He nodded and stepped inside. The apartment was smaller than his master bathroom. The walls were chipped. The air faintly smelled of Vicks and instant soup. And everything was organized with the careful touch of someone who had just enough, and not a bit more. On the wall were drawings. On the fridge, hospital appointment cards and overdue notices. He turned to her. You never told me. She shook her head. You never asked. He looked back at the twins. One of them waved. The other coughed and smiled through it. Maya sat down at the edge of their mattress and ran a hand over their hair. I'm not after your money, Ethan. I'm after time. Time with them. Time that doesn't come with enough hours or enough medicine. That's why I work so much. Why I leave early and eat less and lie. When people ask if I'm okay. She didn't say it with drama. She said it like someone tired of pretending. And for the first time, Ethan had no response. No judgment, no theory. Just the deep ache of a truth he hadn't been ready for. He thought she wanted what every woman wanted from him. But she wasn't chasing luxury. She was fighting to keep her kids alive. And now, something in him began to fight too. The apartment was quiet now. Maya was busy heating up soup on the stove, but Ethan didn't move. He stood in the middle of the tiny living room, still gripping the strap of her return bag like a lifeline. Then he heard a soft voice behind him. "Mister?" Ethan turned. One of the twins, thin, pale, with big eyes and a slight wheeze in his breath, was tugging on his sleeve. "Do you want to see our room?" Before Ethan could respond, the little boy grabbed his hand with surprising confidence and pulled him toward a doorway with peeling paint. The room wasn't really a room. It was part of the living area, sectioned off with a curtain and a makeshift divider, made from stacked storage bins and an old bookshelf. Inside were two tiny beds pushed against the wall, one medical monitor blinking softly beside them. On the walls, hand-drawn stars, glow-in-the-dark stickers, and a paper sign that read, "Team Strong." The other twin, quieter and thinner, lay propped up by pillows on one bed, a small oxygen tube beneath his nose. He looked up and gave Ethan a tired smile. Ethan's throat closed. The machine hummed softly. An IV bag hung from a coat rack, duct-taped in place. A humidifier rattled in the corner, and between it all, there were signs of life. A Spider-Man blanket, a plush frog with a missing eye, crayons in a plastic cup labeled Hope. Ethan knelt down without thinking. "You guys like drawing?" he asked. The stronger twin nodded and picked up a folded piece of paper from under the bed. He opened it proudly. It was a drawing of a man standing next to a woman and two kids. "That's you," the boy said. "You're Mommy's boss." Ethan smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. He realized something right then. He had more money than most people could dream of. But this boy, this brave little kid with tubes and wires and stickers on his wall, had more heart. And this room, this tiny corner of the world, patched together with duct tape and love, it had more courage than all his boardrooms combined. For a moment he just sat there, silent. One of the boys reached over, gently placing a small, sticky hand on Ethan's. "You can stay," he whispered. And Ethan did. That night he didn't rush off to a meeting. He didn't call a car. He helped Maya stir soup. He read The Very Hungry Caterpillar aloud while one twin fell asleep. He replaced a light bulb in the hallway. He held a child's hand until the monitors beeped soft and steady. And for the first time in years, he didn't feel alone. The twins were finally asleep. The oxygen machine gave off its soft hum in the background. Their tiny breaths, once ragged, now moved in slow, steady rhythm. A children's book lay open on the floor, half finished. Maya gently pulled the curtain closed and turned toward Ethan. She looked tired, but not embarrassed anymore. She walked into the kitchen and sat down at the chip table. It was late. The soup had gone cold, but she poured them both a cup anyway, and he followed, sitting across from her in silence. For a moment neither spoke. Then Maya looked up straight into his eyes. "So now you've seen it," she said softly. "The part of me I don't show anyone." Ethan opened his mouth but stopped. There was nothing to say that didn't feel small. Maya continued, her voice low but steady. "They were born early, 31 weeks. The doctors didn't think they'd make it. No insurance. No husband, just me." She stirred her soup slowly, not eating it. "I lost my job the week they came home. Got evicted 6 months later. Moved in here after a friend found the listing on a church bulletin board. That oxygen tank was donated. The prescriptions. We juggle." Ethan's hands curled slightly around his cup. "I never wanted to be a charity case," she said, her voice tightening. "So when I met you, I didn't plan anything. I just wanted one dinner, one night where I wasn't just surviving." Her eyes glistened, but she didn't let the tears fall. "And then I saw the way you looked at me, like you were waiting for me to ask for something, to prove your suspicions." She took a deep breath. "I didn't tell you because I didn't want pity, and I didn't want to lose what little dignity I still had." Her voice cracked now, just slightly. "I wasn't chasing your money, Ethan. I was avoiding it, because if you gave it to me, I knew I'd take it. And I was tired of needing help just to survive another day." She finally looked up again. "You judged me before you ever asked who I really was." Ethan's chest felt heavy, because she was right. He had judged her, assumed the worst, built a wall where she had only shown grace. He leaned forward now, his voice barely audible. "I was wrong." Maya gave a small, sad smile. "You're not the first, but you're the only one who ever came back." That moment in her tiny kitchen wasn't grand. There were no violins, No sweeping music. Just two people sitting across from each other, quietly breaking open. And for Ethan, the man who had built empires, signed billion-dollar deals, and been surrounded by power his whole life, this was the most honest moment he'd ever known. Ethan didn't sleep that night. He lay on his designer mattress in a high-rise bedroom, with floor-to-ceiling windows, and felt completely small. The city sparkled outside, but all he saw was the glow-in-the-dark stars on a cracked apartment wall. He kept hearing the oxygen machine, the soft little voice that asked if he wanted to see their room. The quiet strength in Maya's words. He had spent his entire life building walls around his name, his money, his heart. But tonight, one woman and two sick children had opened a door he didn't even know was locked, and he couldn't shut it again. The next morning, he cancelled every meeting. For the first time in years, Ethan Cross, the man who never let anyone dictate his schedule, chose to show up somewhere no one expected him to be. Maya's apartment. She opened the door, surprised. The twins squealed behind her. "You came back," she said softly. He smiled, holding up a grocery bag. "Thought you could use help with breakfast." That day he made pancakes, badly. One burned. One flipped onto the floor. The boys laughed until they coughed. Maya stood in the kitchen, covering her mouth, tears slipping down her face, not because she was sad, but because for once she wasn't alone. He stayed the whole day. He built a toy shelf with his own hands, even, though he hadn't touched a screwdriver in a decade. He fixed the leaky faucet, replaced a flickering light bulb, read Goodnight Moon twice in one sitting. That night, when the twins were tucked in, one of them whispered, "Can you stay until we fall asleep?" He nodded and sat at the edge of the mattress. Maya watched from the doorway. He wasn't just some billionaire anymore. He was a man who had finally stopped running from stillness. From that point forward, he showed up every day. Not with diamonds, not with promises, but with groceries, warm meals, new crayons, a steady hand holding a spoonful of medicine. And without a word, Maya began to trust him. Because Ethan wasn't trying to fix her life overnight. He was just in it now, in the mess, in the noise, in the love. And for the first time in his life, that was enough. Ethan used to measure his days in profits and percentages. Now he measured them in coughs less frequent, smiles more often, and the sound of two small voices yelling, "You came back." He still ran a billion-dollar company. But his heart, it lived in that tiny apartment now. One cold morning, Maya came home from her early shift to find the fridge stocked top to bottom. Fresh produce, real milk, brand-name cereal, the kind she'd never buy. There was no receipt, no note, no explanation, just a sticky note on the freezer that read, "You're doing amazing. Keep going," written in a child's handwriting. But Maya knew it wasn't her boys. She looked out the window. Ethan's car was gone. The next week, a brand new oxygen machine appeared. Quiet, efficient, hospital grade. Maya stared at it, tears welling up. This wasn't charity. This was thoughtfulness. Someone had paid attention and made a choice. The following day, her rent, 3 months behind, vanished from the tenant portal. When she called to ask, the landlord just said, "Anonymous donation. All taken care of." She sat on the edge of her bed, shaking. No flowers, no flash. Just help, the kind she had never received before. Quiet, consistent, and without strings. One evening, she finally confronted him. The boys were asleep, and Ethan had just finished washing the dishes. Maya folded her arms. "The groceries, the rent, the new medical machine. That was you, wasn't it?" He looked at her and didn't lie. "It was." She stared at him. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I didn't want to take your power away." She blinked, caught off guard. "Most people throw money at things to feel good. I used to do that. But this, what you're doing every single day, that's real. I just wanted to make it easier for you to keep going." Tears welled in her eyes again. "You didn't have to." He smiled gently. "No, Maya, I wanted to." And that's when she realized he wasn't doing this for redemption. He wasn't trying to win her over. He was simply becoming the kind of man worthy of her children. And in doing so, he became someone worthy of her. The room was filled with folding chairs, handmade streamers, and the smell of too much glitter glue. The local elementary school was hosting a small fundraiser, just a few parents. Teachers and children in wrinkled costumes, gathered in a multi-purpose room that doubled as a cafeteria. Ethan had never been in a place like this. Not really. Not where the walls were decorated with macaroni art. Not where juice boxes were served as refreshments. Not where real joy cost nothing. He sat near the back, next to Maya, dressed simply in jeans and a soft sweater. She looked different here, comfortable, proud. The twins were backstage, one using a walker, the other with a small oxygen tank strapped to his back like a backpack. Maya leaned in and whispered, "They wrote something. I haven't seen it yet." Ethan nodded, but didn't speak. His throat already tightened. The stage lights flicked on. The twins walked out slowly, nervously, the audience applauding them just for being there. They held hands. One of them stepped forward and unfolded a paper in his trembling hands. "This is called Our Hero." He looked up at the crowd, then down at the words. "Our mom is our hero, but someone else helped her be strong. Someone who didn't wear a cape or a suit, but who came when we were scared." The other twin continued. "He didn't fix everything, but he made sure we had food and medicine, and that mom could breathe again too." Ethan blinked hard. His chest ached. Then both boys pointed from the stage. "That's him. That's our hero." The entire room turned. To Ethan. To the man who once believed love was a lie, who thought kindness was weakness, who mistook survival for strategy. Now that same man sat in the back row, wiping tears silently from his face. The applause rose, slow and honest. But it wasn't the sound that broke him. It was Maya's hand sliding into his, her voice soft in his ear. "I thought you were judging me, but you saved us." He turned to her, barely able to speak. "No," he whispered. "You saved me." He came looking for a fling. He stayed because he found a family. Not because she was beautiful, not because he felt guilty, but because two little boys taught him that being rich means nothing if your heart stays poor. Ethan used to believe love came with contracts, that people only showed up when they had something to gain. He thought kindness was a currency, traded, not given, and that no one stayed unless they had a reason to. But then came a woman who never asked him for a thing, and two children who didn't care about his last name, only that he showed up every day, every night, every moment that mattered. They didn't need a billionaire. They needed someone steady, someone safe, someone real. And in choosing to be that person, Ethan became something money could never buy. A father, a partner, a man with purpose. Because sometimes love doesn't knock. It arrives quietly. Through a forgotten handbag, a sick child's drawing, and a room held together by hope. And in the end, it wasn't her who was after his heart. It was his heart, finally chasing her. This story touched your heart? Don't leave without telling us why. Comment below. Have you ever met someone who changed everything when you least expected it? Tap like if you believe love still exists, even in the unlikeliest places. Please subscribe for more emotional stories that remind us what really matters. Not the money, not the titles, but the moments that change us forever. Because sometimes the richest people are the ones who finally learn how to give their heart away.